Welcome to all our viewers in India and around the world. You're watching Defense Dynamics and I'm Danveer Singh coming to you from New Delhi. On Defense Dynamics, we'll talk about Europe's nuclear posture shift. France and Germany are in talks on shared deterrence, what it means for NATO's future. India's 3.6 lakh crore rupees defense modernization push and its impact on modernization in changing strategic context, we'll explain. Why the DAC's approval for purchase of force multipliers like the Rafale and P-8I deal mean for India's air superiority and maritime dominance. There is a surge in cyber espionage targeting the defense sector workers. Why it is so and what it means. And also in my take, I will tell you about why India's new defense procurement policy is not a reform but a strategic reset. All this and far more, but first the global defense headlines.
India hosted the International Fleet Review, the IFR 2026 at Visakhapatnam, where President Draupadi Murmu reviewed over 70 warships from INS Sumedha. The President also reviewed the ceremonial fleet and witnessed a spectacular display of India's naval strength and maritime capabilities. Scheduled from February 15th to 25th, the IFR is being hosted by the Indian Navy, marking India's first time hosting it alongside Exercise Milan and Indian Ocean Naval Symposium Conclave of the Chiefs. India's Defence Minister Mr. Rajnath Singh and France's Minister of Armed Forces and Veteran Affairs Catherine Vautrin co-chaired the 6th India-France Annual Defence Dialogue in Bangalore on February the 17th of 2026. The ministers reviewed key bilateral security and defence priorities with a strong focus on co-development, co-production and deeper industry-to-industry collaboration in niche technologies. The joint military exercise Khanjar 13 between Special Forces of India and Kyrgyzstan concluded at Misamari, Assam. Conducted from 4th to 17th February 2026, the exercise enhanced mutual understanding, operational synergy and shared tactical proficiency. It reflected the deepening defence partnership and reaffirmed a shared commitment to regional stability and enduring military cooperation between the Indian Army and the Kyrgyz Army. The British Army's 5th Regiment of Royal Artillery is set to receive Leonardo's passive acoustic detection system SONUS over the next 12 months under $24.96 million contract under Project Serpent. SONUS is the latest version of Leonardo's hostile artillery locating system currently being used in Ukraine-Russia conflict. Denmark has established a new unit to operate its recently ordered MQ-9 Sky Guardian and Sea Guardian unmanned aircraft systems from General Atomics Aeronautical Systems. The Danish Ministry of Defence confirmed Danish Air Force has activated 729 Squadron to operate 4 MQ-9B air vehicles. The aircraft will support environmental monitoring, search and rescue operations and intelligence missions.
Europe's security architecture is at an inflection point. At the Munich Security Conference, a quiet but historic conversation has begun, one that could reshape deterrence doctrine on the continent. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and French President Emmanuel Macron confirmed discussions on strengthening a European nuclear deterrence framework. For decades, Europe has relied heavily on American nuclear umbrella under the NATO. Now, amid persistent Russian nuclear signaling and a shifting US strategic focus towards the Indo-Pacific, Europe is asking a fundamental question. Should it build a stronger nuclear pillar for its own?
The war in Ukraine and repeated nuclear rhetoric from Moscow have reignited debate across European capitals. While NATO's Article 5 guarantee remains intact, policymakers privately acknowledge uncertainty about long-term US political commitments. Washington's increasing prioritization of China and Indo-Pacific competition has reinforced the belief that Europe must shoulder greater responsibility for its own deterrence posture. France's unique position. France occupies a unique strategic position. It is the only European Union member with an independent nuclear force, sea-based ballistic missile submarines, and air-delivered nuclear capability. President Macron has repeatedly argued that Europe must develop strategic autonomy, not to weaken the NATO, but to strengthen Europe's ability to act independently if required. Discussions now center on whether France's deterrent could be more explicitly integrated into a broader European security framework. Germany's strategic evaluation. Germany's participation in this conversation is particularly significant, historically cautious on nuclear matters due to its post-World War II posture. Berlin has long relied on NATO's nuclear sharing agreements. Chancellor Merz' openness to dialogue signals a potential strategic recalibration reflecting growing public and political recognition that Europe may need additional layers of deterrence assurance. Implications for NATO. Officials emphasize this is not an attempt to replace NATO. Rather, it would create a stronger European pillar within the alliance. But such a shift raises complex questions. Who controls launch authority? How is nuclear doctrine harmonized? What are the legal and political constraints? Even initiating this debate marks a fundamental transformation in Europe's strategic thinking.
This debate goes far beyond nuclear weapons. It is about Europe redefining its strategic identity. If France and Germany move towards deeper deterrence integration, it would mark the most significant evolution in European security since the Cold War. The message is clear. Europe wants greater strategic autonomy even while remaining within NATO, and that shift will have ripple effects far beyond the continent.
That was a significant development from Europe if France and Germany moved together towards a coordinated nuclear framework. It would fundamentally reshape the continent's deterrence architecture. The bigger picture now is, will this remain strategic signaling or evolve into an institutional change? Either ways, Europe's debate reflects a world where security guarantees are no longer taken for granted. Now coming to India, in one of the most consequential defense modernization decisions in recent years, the Defense Acquisition Council has cleared proposals worth approximately rupees 3.60 lakh crores. Chaired by Defense Minister Mr. Rajnath Singh, the approvals span all three services, the Army, Navy and the Air Force, along with the Coast Guard. This is not just a procurement, it's a comprehensive capability upgrade which is designed to address operational gaps, enhance deterrence and accelerate indigenous manufacturing.
The sale of the put. Rupees 3.60 lakh crores represent one of the largest coordinated defense approval cycle in recent years. The proposals include advanced fighter aircraft, long-range precision strike systems, maritime surveillance platforms, missile systems and next-generation battlefield technology. The objective is clear: strengthen multi-domain capability across air, land and sea. Air power modernization. For the Indian Air Force, the focus remains on rebuilding squadron strength and enhancing long-range strike capability. With aging fleets being phased out, new fighter acquisitions and advanced weapon systems aim to close capability gaps and improve readiness in both Western and Northern theatres. Long-range precision strike capability is central to maintaining credible deterrence. Maritime expansion. For the Navy, enhanced maritime patrol aircraft and surveillance assets strengthen India's position across the Indian Ocean region. With increasing submarine activity and maritime competition in the region, improved anti-submarine warfare and domain awareness are strategic necessities. The modernization ensures India retains operational advantage in its primary maritime theatre. Army modernization and technology integration. The Army share of approval includes next-generation equipment designed to improve mobility, battlefield awareness, and network-centric operations. Modern warfare demands integration of surveillance, drones, missiles, and rapid response capability. This procurement cycle reflects a shift towards technology-enabled operations. Atmanirbhar push. Importantly, a significant portion of these approvals prioritize domestic manufacturing. Under the Atmanirbhar Bharat framework, India is seeking not only to equip its armed forces but also strengthen its defense industrial base. Modernization and indigenization are now moving together. Procurement is being used as an economic and strategic lever.
This 3.60 lakh crore rupees modernization push reflects strategic clarity. India is preparing for a future defined by multi-domain competition, for contested borders to maritime rivalry. But this is not just about new platforms or missile systems. It signals a deeper transition towards long-term defense, industrial strength, strategic autonomy, and credible deterrence. Modernization is no longer incremental. It is structural and long-term.
India's modernization push is clearly gathering momentum. What stands out is the scale and the structural nature of these approvals. This is not incremental procurement. It is a coordinated capability upgrade across the services. Now the focus has shifted to execution timelines, delivery, and indigenous manufacturing depth. Because in defense, planning, speed is as important as the scale. Now to major force multipliers for India's air and maritime power. The Defence Acquisition Council has cleared the proposal for 114 Rafale fighter jets and additional P-8I maritime surveillance aircrafts, a move that could significantly strengthen both air superiority and naval domain awareness. The Rafale expansion marks one of the largest fighter acquisition in India's history, deepening strategic cooperation with France while reinforcing combat readiness.
The Rafale expansion. India already operates 36 Rafale fighters. Now the proposed acquisition of 114 additional jets would dramatically expand Squadron strength and provide advanced multi-role capability across theatres. The Rafale brings long-range precision strike, advanced electronic warfare capability, network-centric combat integration, beyond visual range air dominance. For Indian Air Force, this is not quite merely a fleet expansion, but it is a capability transformation. The strategic context. India's current squadron strength remains below the sanctioned levels. With legacy aircraft being phased out, the induction of additional Rafales could help bridge the gap and enhance readiness along both western and northern fronts. In a two-front contingency scenario, squadron availability and technological edge becomes a decisive factor. Maritime eyes in the sky. Alongside the fighter deal, India is also moving to strengthen maritime surveillance through additional Boeing P-8I Poseidon aircrafts. The P-8I is central to India's anti-submarine warfare capability. With increasing submarine activity in the Indian Ocean region, Enhanced long-range surveillance ensures early detection, tracking and deterrence. Maritime domain awareness is no longer an option. It's a strategic necessity. Industrial and diplomatic dimensions. The proposed Rafale deal is expected to include a significant Make in India component. Local manufacturing and supply chain integration would strengthen India's aerospace ecosystem. Strategically, it reinforces the India-France defense partnership, one of India's most stable and trusted defense relationships.
The message is clear. Air dominance and maritime surveillance are foundation to modern deterrence. With expand Rafale inductions and additional P-8I aircraft, India is strengthening both its sword and its shield, ensuring superiority in the skies and vigilance across the seas.
Air power and maritime surveillance remains central to credible deterrence. The Rafale expansion and additional P-8I aircraft signal India's intent to dominate both its airspace and its primary maritime theatre. Beyond platforms, this deal also reinforces long-term strategic partnerships, particularly with France. In an era of contested skies and crowded seas, capability advantage makes all that difference. Now to the heart of aerospace power, the engine. In a major development, Rolls-Royce has proposed co-developing next-generation combat jet engines with Indian partners. This is not just a technology collaboration, it could redefine India's long-term aerospace independence.
Why engines matter? In fighter aircraft development, engines are the most complex and strategically sensitive component. They determine thrust, range, payload capacity, stealth performance, and overall combat capability. For decades, India has depended on foreign suppliers for high-performance jet engines. This dependency has often constrained indigenous fighter programs. The co-development proposal. Rolls-Royce's proposal signals willingness for deeper technology partnership, potentially including joint design, manufacturing, and local production. If realized, this could mark a shift from licensed production to genuine technological collaboration. Such a move would directly support India's future combat ambitions and next-generation platforms. Strategic implications. Engine indigenization is not just about cost saving, it is about freedom from supply chain vulnerability, sovereign control over upgrades, faster innovation cycles, export competitiveness. Without engine autonomy, aerospace independence remains incomplete. Industrial ecosystem boost. Co-development would stimulate India's high-end metallurgy, material science, and precision engineering sectors. The benefits would extend beyond military aviation, strengthening the broader aerospace ecosystem.
Fighter jets may dominate headlines, but engines determine real power. If India succeeds in co-developing next-generation propulsion system, it would mark a decisive step towards true aerospace sovereignty. In today's geopolitics, technological control ultimately translates into a strategic control.
Combat aircraft may define air power, but engines define independence. If India successfully co-develops next-generation propulsion system, it could close one of the most critical technological gaps in its aerospace ecosystem. True strategic autonomy begins at the design table and not at the import docks. The coming years will show whether this proposal becomes a turning point in India's aviation history or not. Modern warfare is no longer confined to battlefields. It is unfolding in inboxes, laptops, and supply chains. A new wave of cyber espionage campaigns is targeting defense sector employees. engineers, procurement officials, contractors, and even research staff. State-sponsored hacking groups are increasingly focusing not just on military network, but on the people who build, design, and maintain defense systems. The new target, the individual. The cyber security agencies have warned of a surge in highly sophisticated phishing and malware campaigns aimed directly at defense industry personnel. Instead of attacking hardened military servers, adversaries are targeting individual employees, often through personalized emails, fake job offers, conference invites, or defense tenders. The objective is clear: gain access through the weakest link, the human vulnerability. Why defense workers? Modern defense ecosystems are vast and interconnected. Private companies manufacture components, startups design software, research labs develop AI, drones, and next generation systems. One compromised account in a supply chain network can expose sensitive design data, testing results, or classified communications. In today's defense landscape, intellectual property is strategic power. The actors and the intent. Security analysts point to state-linked groups operating from multiple regions, using advanced social engineering, credential harvesting, and zero-day exploits. The targets often include missile development programs, aerospace propulsion research, naval systems integration, cyber and AI defense initiatives. The goal is not disruption, it is silent extraction. Steal designs, shorten development cycles, neutralize competitive advantage. Hybrid warfare reality. Cyber espionage has become a pillar of hybrid warfare. Unlike conventional conflict, there are no visible troop movements, no air raid sirens, no missile launches. But the strategic damage can be very enormous, especially if classified defense technologies are compromised. In an era where technology defines military superiority, cyber theft becomes strategic equalization.
This is a reminder that defense security is no longer just about perimeter fences and armed guards. It is about digital hygiene, encrypted communication, and cyber awareness. As India and other major powers accelerates defense modernization, cyber resilience must evolve at the same pace. Because in modern warfare, the first strike may not come from the sky, but from a keyboard.
Cyber espionage targeting defense personnel reflects the changing character of the conflict. Today, engineers are as strategically significant as the soldier itself. And protecting defense capability now requires securing data, supply chains, and human networks, not just borders. The battlefield has expanded, and vigilance must expand with it too. For decades, India's defense procurement system was criticized for three things: delay, dependency, and dysfunction. Project moved very slowly, imports dominated the landscape, and procedures often overwhelmed the purpose. The new defense procurement policy seeks to change all that. But let's be clear, this is not a procedural reform, it's a strategic reset. The new framework aims to compress timelines, prioritize indigenous design, and create clearer procurement categories that favor Indian industry. It strengthens Buy Indian, that is, Indian developed, designed, and manufactured, or the IDDM classifications, pushing technology transfer thresholds higher, and attempts to reduce bureaucratic layers in acquisition cycle. If implemented effectively, this policy could solve India's biggest structural problem in defense, that is the gap between ambition and delivery. Because modern warfare does not wait for files to move. The goal is not just faster purchases. Goal is industrial transformation that India cannot aspire to strategic autonomy while importing critical technologies, especially the engines, sensors, propulsion systems, and electronic warfare suites. Procurement is now being used as a strategic lever to build domestic capability and not merely acquire platforms. This is the fundamental change. Today's battlefield is multi-domain. It is in air, land, sea, cyber and space. Procurement policy must enable rapid induction of drones, AI-enabled systems, precision munitions and network-centric capabilities. The new framework attempts to create space for innovations, startups and private sector participation, something India's defense ecosystem has historically lacked. But the real test will lie in its execution. Will decision cycles truly get shortened? Will the trials and approvals move faster? Will the domestic industry receive predictable order pipelines? Well, policy intent is strong. However, implementation will determine the credibility. Look around the world. Europe is debating nuclear autonomy. Major powers are accelerating defense manufacturing. Supply chains are weaponized and sanction regimes are strategic tools. In this environment, procurement is not just accounting but also geopolitics. India's new policy signals recognition that dependency is a vulnerability. If this policy delivers what it promises, that is speed, transparency and genuine indigenization, it could mark the most important defense reform since the liberalization. But reform on paper is not a reform in practice. Strategic autonomy requires strategic discipline, and now the system must prove that it can deliver. And that's my take. That's all for this week on Defense Dynamics. Share your comments on social media with #DD with See you next week with new defense and geopolitical developments with their analysis. Until then, goodbye and take care.